Hi there, this is Katy Groves. I apologize if there's any background noise. Hopefully it won't be discernible in this video. I'm making this video to talk about some things that I am processing right now. I am currently processing the traumas in which I was forced to harm in horrific ways people who were perpetrative themselves. While I was in MKUltra, I frequently witnessed the CIA do crackdowns on low-level child traffickers operating outside of the CIA's control, drug traffickers, really anyone doing organized crime who didn't answer to the CIA in some way. Anyone not part of an established organization that has a relationship with this government was liable to get blackmailed into slavery to the CIA or killed. And MKUltra slaves were typically used to carry out these acts of violence. As a child, it was my job, among others, in the organization to psychologically break down, torture, and/or kill people who were operating in organized crime circles outside of the government's control. And in processing these traumas, I'm working with parts who were well aware at the time that the people they were being forced to perpetrate against were perpetrators who had done horrible things. And so, naturally, these parts are a little bit less broken up about what they had to do than they would have been, say, if they had been forced to kill innocent children, which is what many other parts of my system were forced to do. So working through this is easier in many ways than it is to work through the traumas in which I was forced to perpetrate against the innocent. However, I am faced with extreme moral ethical questions. I do not believe that those people deserved to be raped, tortured, and killed because they had done those things or somehow fed those things being done to others in some kind of financial or energetic way. I, however, have to face the fact that as a child, my aggression was being naturally channeled towards these people in ways that seemed reasonable to me. No, the severity of the violence that I was forced to perpetrate was not reasonable to me. However, in some cases, I wondered. There were some people who had done such horrific things, I can't say I felt too sorry for them. So right now, I'm trying to work through that. Well, no, I do not believe in revenge killing by default. I believe that some people certainly deserve that less than others. So processing the feelings requires processing a lot of rage. My rage was channeled. My programmers took my rage from being victimized as a child and channeled it into aggression towards very specific perpetrators, while dissociating me from my rage towards them, the people who were actually physically harming me. And in some cases, the people I was forced to perpetrate against had actually perpetrated against me personally. And in those cases, things were even more difficult. A big part of deprogramming for me is determining what I would have actually done had I had the chance to do what I wanted to do. So what would my natural response have been to this situation? And what my gut says is I would have ran. My natural response was to leave. I didn't want to be in a concrete room with a child sex abuser. Or I should really say with a child rapist. I don't like the phrase sex abuser. It implies that sex was happening. I don't want and did not want to be in a concrete room with a child rapist, with a club in my hand, being forced to beat them to death, or beat them into submission, or worse. I just wanted to leave and be in a safe home where I was happy and healthy and taken care of, and everything was made of love, and there was lots of stuffed animals and pets and happiness and brothers and sisters who I was allowed to see who were alive and not being exploited, with loving parents. I wanted toys. I wanted to play. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to learn. I wanted to grow. I wanted all the things that children want. So even if I was angry, yes, I was angry at my perpetrators. And yes, when I was put in a situation where I had to do violence to a perpetrator, that was easier to do than violence against an innocent. That is never what I actually wanted to do. What I wanted was to be far away from there, far away from violence. I didn't want to kill anyone. So I'm really coming in touch with that and processing that. It was okay. It was okay that some part of me got some kind of gratification, some kind of sense of justice restored by doing violence to perpetrators under our programming, as in when we were under our programming. But it is also okay for me to acknowledge that had I had the choice, I would not have been there at all. I really don't like violence. I really don't like rape. The idea of rape revenge makes me feel ill. And I in no way want to shame people who have fantasies of doing harm to their perpetrators or have done some kind of harm to perpetrators. I just want to express my truth that violence makes me sick. As an adult, I feel terribly sorry for those people, for the leaders of the low-level child trafficking rings who got taken in and beaten and sodomized, tortured, drugged, and forced to participate in perpetration worse than what they had been doing in order to psychologically break them down. Because a lot of them weren't sociopaths. They were not the most empathetic, but a lot of them were actually struggling with their perpetrated behaviors. I didn't want to be hurting anyone. And I watched those guys get turned from lower level monsters into high level monsters, programmed monsters. And I feel terribly sorry for them. I'm sorry that they suffered. If I'd had a choice between them getting shot in the head execution style, a merciful death, or them continuing to rape and torment children and broadcast that abuse on the internet, I think my choice is obvious. But would I want to be the one to do it? No. Do I advocate for going around and doing vigilante justice? No. Do I think it would be a lesser of two evils choice? For that person to die rather than for that person to go on perpetrating against small children? Yes. But it was never my responsibility to make that choice. I should have never been put in that position. That's a huge thing in deprogramming, is undoing the double binds, the lesser of two evils choices. That is a phrase that I heard at a ritual abuse and mind control survivor conference that I really appreciated. I mean, I'd heard the phrase before, but I heard it in that context. When a mind control survivor is given an option between committing violence in two different ways, it makes sense that if that person had a sense of empathy, they would try and choose the one type of violence that they thought was more morally, not necessarily justifiable, but I guess was, again, less evil than the other. So for example, if I was forced to choose between killing a perpetrator and killing a child, obviously the morally sound choice to me would be to kill the perpetrator. But to say this was a choice when one is in such a double bind, it can only be understood as a choice within its context in which there was limited range of choice. Like I said, had I had the choice to leave and be safe and be away from all that, I would have. Okay, so I've just been processing some stuff out loud. I'm containing an inner child that is really upset right now. So I'm going to go and process that, deal with that, and I hope this has been informative to people. So it's just an insight into where I'm at right now. Thank you.